Okay, so most people look at Warren Buffett and assume he's the world's greatest investor simply because he possesses some kind of raw, unmatched financial genius, right? We painstakingly study his stock picks, we dissect his letters to shareholders, and we try to reverse engineer his whole value investing strategy. But we're actually missing the most important fact of his entire career. It's a paradox that completely flips how we should think about money. Because honestly, if Warren Buffett had lived like a normal person, starting his career in his 20s and retiring in his 60s, you would probably have never even heard his name. Welcome to our explainer today, where we're going to challenge conventional wisdom and uncover the true engine behind legendary wealth. Let's get right into it.
$84.5 billion. That is Warren Buffett's staggering net worth as noted in our source material. I mean, it's a figure so large, it's practically impossible to truly comprehend. And this massive fortune really sets the stakes for our discussion today. But here's the thing. The real story isn't the final number. It's the journey to get there. Because like I just mentioned, if he had followed a standard timeline of working and retiring, that number wouldn't exist, and his name wouldn't be synonymous with investing success.
What's truly interesting is the timeline of this wealth accumulation. It exposes the absolute absurdity of how his fortune was built. Get this. Out of his $84.5 billion net worth, $84.2 billion of it was accumulated after his 50th birthday. Actually, it gets even more shocking. $81.5 billion, which is over 96% of his entire wealth, came after he qualified for Social Security in his mid-60s. Just let that sink in for a second. The vast, overwhelming majority of his fortune was made when most people are completely done working. And this brings us right to the core thesis of our explainer today. Your biggest financial asset isn't your brain, it's the clock. Our linear, human brains simply are not built to handle the kind of absurd math we just looked at. We naturally assume that massive outputs require massive, sudden inputs. But the reality of wealth creation is vastly different. Time is the true engine of wealth here. To really grasp this, we actually need to look far outside the world of finance for a minute.
To understand Buffett, you actually have to understand an ice age. Scientists used to believe that ice ages happened because of incredibly harsh, ravenous winters. But they were wrong. It actually starts with moderately cool summers. If a summer is just cool enough that the previous winter's snow doesn't completely melt, well, that leftover ice makes it easier for more snow to stick the next year. That perpetual snow reflects the sun's rays, which makes the atmosphere even colder, which leads to more snow, and on and on. It's a relentless, unstoppable cycle.
And this brilliantly illustrates the confounding math of compounding. Just like that ice age, a massive glacier doesn't need a tremendous, world-shattering force to form. It just needs a small starting base of snow that actually lasts and is allowed to feed on itself exponentially. This is the exact same principle behind compounding money. A little bit of growth serves as the fuel for future growth, leading to results that completely defy logic.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Warren Buffett is a financial ice sheet. His fortune isn't just due to finding a few good stocks or being remarkably clever. His true superpower is that he has been a phenomenal investor for 3/4 of a century. He started building his snowpack when he was just 10 years old, and he never let it melt. He gave it 75 years to reflect the sun and pull in more snow.
Let's run a quick thought experiment to see how this builds, completely isolating the variable of time. Let's compare the actual Buffett to a hypothetical normal Buffett. So, actual Buffett started serious investing at age 10 and literally never quit. But what if he was a normal guy? What if he spent his 20s traveling the world, finding his passion, and only started investing at age 30 with a modest net worth of $25,000? And then, what if he decided to retire at age 60 to play golf and hang out with his grandkids?
Now, in this normal scenario, we are still going to grant him his exact same investing genius. We'll give him the extraordinary 22% annual returns that he has historically generated. We aren't changing his brain, his strategy, or his stock picking ability at all. We are only changing his timeline.
So what would this normal Buffett's net worth be today? Prepare for some mathematical whiplash. While his actual net worth is $84.5 billion, with a normal timeline, even with his genius 22% returns, his net worth drops to just $11.9 million. It's an incredible look at exactly what happens when you cut the compounding timeline short.
That represents 99.9% less wealth. This drives home a profound realization. Effectively, all of Warren Buffett's legendary success can be tied directly to the financial base he built as a child and the longevity he maintained into his geriatric years. His skill is absolutely investing. There is for sure no denying that. But his true, underlying secret? It's time.
Now, if you still think maximizing returns is the ultimate goal, let me introduce you to the ultimate foil:
Jim Simons, head of the hedge fund Renaissance Technologies. Jim Simons has compounded money at an incredible 66% annually for 30 years. I mean, Buffett's 22% looks like amateur hour next to that. Yet, when we look at their net worths, Simons is sitting at $21 billion compared to Buffett's $84.5 billion.
Think about that. Even with returns 3 times higher than Buffett's, Jim Simons is 75% poor. Why is that? Well, it's entirely because Simons didn't find his investment stride until he was 50 years old. He has had less than half the time to let his wealth compound compared to Buffett. It just goes to show that even the greatest annual returns in the world cannot catch up to the sheer weight of decades of uninterrupted compounding.
Just to really blow your mind here, let's run the math on what would happen if Jim Simons actually had Buffett's timeline. If Simons maintained his 66% returns for Buffett's 75-year time frame, he would be worth $63 quintillion. Yes, you heard me right. That is a 63 followed by 18 zeros. It's a completely ridiculous, impractical number, of course, but it forcefully proves how small changes in growth assumptions over long periods lead to results that just completely defy human comprehension. Synthesizing the lesson from the Simons comparison gives us this really vital takeaway. A pretty good, sustained return will always beat a great, short-lived return. Maximizing your returns is practically useless if you take on so much risk or stress that you can't stick with the strategy for decades. The goal isn't to be the highest earner every single year. The goal is to be a consistent earner for the absolute longest possible period. Which requires a quick pivot to the concept of survival. Because getting wealthy is one thing, but staying wealthy is entirely different. Good investing is about consistently not screwing up. Buffett's secret isn't just about what he bought, it's largely about what he didn't do. He survived 14 recessions without panicking. He didn't take on catastrophic debt. He didn't burn out. He simply made sure he was never, ever forced to stop playing the game.
There are literally over 2,000 books analyzing Buffett's sector bets, his trading strategies, and his economic cycle timing. But honestly, the only finance book you truly need could be summarized in one blank page with just 4 words: shut up and wait. It sounds like a joke, I know, but the practical takeaway is that constant tinkering usually interrupts the very mechanism that builds wealth.
Buffett's longtime business partner, the late Charlie Munger, summarized this perfectly. He said, "The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily." The absolute hardest financial skill you can develop is getting your internal goalposts to just stop moving. It's about letting the math work in the background without letting fear, greed, or even boredom cause you to disrupt the whole process.
But why is this so difficult for us? Well, it comes down to cognitive dissonance. If I asked you to add 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, your linear intuition instantly knows it's 32, right? But if I ask you to multiply 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, the exponential reality is 4,096. Our brains naturally think in linear terms, which makes the exponential reality of compounding feel totally unintuitive. We just can't feel the math working until it's already massive.
So let's summarize our core behavioral takeaways from this explainer today. First, time is the heavy lifter. You don't need to be a financial genius, you just need to not quit. Second, room for error is vital. If a market crash or a bad decision can wipe you out, you won't live long enough to see the compounding magic. You have to survive. And third, remember that compounding is exponential, not linear. Trust the math, even when your intuition is telling you that nothing is happening.
I want to leave you with this provocative question to think about. Are you currently optimizing your financial decisions for the highest possible return today, or are you optimizing for the longest possible timeline? Because if we've learned anything from the Buffett Paradox, it's that you should probably stop chasing short-term genius gains. Start engineering your financial life for endurance, and let the clock do the heavy lifting for you.